Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 486. And for once, we got started on time. Um, I'm, I'm your host. I am your host, Michael. Um, Joining me this week, at least one of the usual cast of characters, Gail from NYFights.com. Hope to have Daniel from Four Boxing News um, on later. Just a forewarning, this because it was limited number of fights, even though the fights were really talked about throughout the weekend. This I plan to have this a short episode. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get this done in under an hour. So just a forewarning before that. But for those on YouTube, Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast, etc. Talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. As long as concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you wish to email us with any questions, thoughts, suggestions, etc., you can do so at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you're checking us out on YouTube, please check the description below and you will see where to find us on all social media platforms. I see Daniel is joining us right now. Daniel from Four Boxing News Media and Scriber. Again, just check the description below for those who are checking us out on YouTube. Links to find us, the YouTube channel, links to find Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Twitter, IG, Facebook. Um, if you wish to donate, got a Cash Me in PayPal donation link. Um, wouldn't matter to us if it's $1, $2, $5, whatever you want to contribute. We will be grateful. Help the overall production behind the scene. And I kind of messed this up last week, but Pound for Pound Boxing Report is the official affiliate for Nahir Fragrances and Nazar Fragrances. Michael WP4P for 15% off on any and all things in store. Let me repeat that again. Michael WP4P for 15% off on anything. For warning, if you're checking out Nazar Fragrances right now, because they had a huge Mother's Day sale, their 30 mLs are currently out of stock, but their 10 ml travels and their 50 ml from the oiled up collection are still all in stock, as well as the custom blends if you want something private and exclusive to you. So there again, Michael WP4P for 15% off on everything from Nazar Fragrances and Nahir Fragrances, which are gladly we are affiliates. And if you want to say sponsors of now the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, and Nahir Fragrances in particular sponsors until the end of the year, ladies and gentlemen. So yay. Let's get things going by recapping what went down, and let's head over to the UK. Listen, last week we talked about um, the fight between Inoue and Nakatani, and folks were disappointed. They a lot of folks expected um, what amounted to a war, and we kind of forecasted right during our preview of Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois. For those who were disappointed in a way in Nakatani from a perspective of action, uh, you would get that in Wardley and Dubois. And my goodness, did boxing fans get their delight of outright, pure, unadulterated violence? I'll begin with you, Gail. One of the fights of the year, uh, Wardley put Dubois down in the opening 2 seconds, put him down again in the third. But credit to Dubois, who kind of gathered himself, got that ramrod of a jab going, and slowly but surely worked his way back into the fight. Began to land with more and more consistency, right? Wardley, he stood tough, but the reason I named this episode um, Too Much Punishment with the question mark, of taking too much punishment with a question mark, because as the fight persisted, to me, Wardley started to take a beating. He got stopped in 11 Gale, but I think that fight could have been stopped in round 9, right? Kudos to Dubois in what he did, but the talk amongst a lot of observers particularly insiders, trainers, and whatnot, was that fight went too far. Uh, Wardley took too much punishment, and a lot of criticism was handed down towards his corner. Recap the fight for me, please. Your thoughts on when it was stopped, as well as the criticism towards Wardley's camp for what many felt was letting their guy take unnecessary punishment.
Well, if you like all action, all out slugfest, as you said, violence with a capital V, this was your fight. It was heavyweights. It was action packed, never a lull, never a chance to catch your breath. I found myself running in the 60 seconds between, I don't know what, 2 rounds when I needed to do something and thought, this isn't enough time. I've got to get back there. And I imagine most viewers who are at home were like me. You were on your feet for a lot of it, standing and watching. I mean, I just could not place myself in a chair. And we were talking to the screen. And most of us were saying near the end, stop the fight. And on Boxing Twitter cannot agree on anything, including the sky being blue. Boxing Twitter was saying, stop the fight. This fight needs to be stopped. Nevertheless, it will be in the conversation and one of the finalists for Fight of the Year without question. There are a couple of rounds you could put in for Round of the Year, no question. Tremendous show of heart, skill, determination on the part of both men. They were very evenly matched. The scorecards were very close up through the last few rounds. And we all thought it was going to be over before it started. The joke, with a full fight like this with two big punchers is you got better be in your seat at the opening bell. Don't blink. Don't blink was the moniker, the name used for the fight card. And sure enough, Fabio Wardley scored a knockdown with the second punch thrown, the first punch landed in the entire fight. And both his knockdowns, the one in the first, the one in the third, were very similar punches. Big, looping overhand rights that land toward the temple versus the cheek or the jaw. And they clearly threw off Dubois' balance and equilibrium. But the difference in the fight, heart aside, power aside, skill aside, will to win aside, came down to two things. And the same two things were in large part in play in the Inoue-Nakatani fight: pedigree and experience. And simply put, no matter how many physical tools Fabio Wardley has, and he does have them, there was no shame in this loss. He deserves to come back. He deserves to keep going and get another shot. He'll be warmly welcome back if he isn't damaged by what happened in this fight, of course, after a long layoff. But simply put, he lacks the kind of experience and pedigree, long background in the sport that Dubois has. And similar to Inoue, who'd been knocked down twice in fights before he faced Nakatani, Dubois has been knocked down and lost in fights. Inoue never lost, but he knows what it's like to get back up off the deck. And that makes a difference. Forged by fire. That experience is something a fighter can lean on when things get tough, as they inevitably will as you crawl up the ladder. And Dubois used every darn bit of that experience, everything said about him, everything in training. I do think also it was a very smart idea for him to go back to Don Charles. And if you all saw Don Charles, he pulled a Trinidad on Dubois after the third round, after the second knockdown, as Dubois went back to the corner. He slapped him across the chops to wake him up. It did matter. It made a difference. The corner instructions were excellent. Wardley's corner with Ben Davison and his team were fine until they got to the decision-making part. because after the third round, when we really thought, all right, boy, Dubois has dug himself quite the hole. He's not only down 2 rounds to 1, he's down 8 rounds to 1. But he kept coming. He got himself together. He was smart about his energy level. In large part, Wardley, just sort of swung for the fences many times. It's Dubois was more disciplined. Dubois has an absolutely fantastic jab. It's like a jackhammer. And he settled down. He got his wits about him. His trainer steered him right. He got that jab going. And that is really the punch that did most of the damage to Wardley. It was used as a weapon, not a rangefinder, not a protective device. And that's what did it. If you watched the fight, if you watched the highlights, you could see Wardley just taking damage, little chips of damage, looking worse and worse and worse in every round and not being able to marshal his stamina and resources back after Dubois caught up and got the upper hand. So here we are 2/3 of the way through the fight. And we all know what Wardley's capable of. Several times, including in his last fight against Justice Hooney, he was losing on the cards, just like he was on Saturday. And yet he pulled the iron out of the fire in the 10th round, I think, 11th round of the Hooney fight to win. Scored a knockout. So here is the challenge of being the trainer of a fighter like that. Yeah, he looked terrible. His nose was just flattened. He had cuts over the eye. One eye was at the point of by the 8th round was completely swollen shut. And the other one was heading that direction. At some point, his face was so rearranged. It was just one big bloody mass in the middle like a clown nose. You could really barely see the structure of his face remaining underneath. Inexplicably, the ringside physician was asked to look at it twice, let him go. Referee Howard Foster, who has taken heat for stopping fights early, didn't stop it. So your last line of defense is trainer Ben Davison. But here you are knowing that Wardley has proven capable of turning a fight around that he's losing. So he gets an extra bit of consideration. And that was what was in play there. Davidson was giving him every chance for that repeat, pulling it out at the last minute performance. And finally, it did fall to Howard Foster to stop the fight. He ended up being the one, of all people, to finally step in. At that point, though, boy, he had really taken almost 2 full rounds that, in my opinion, he shouldn't have. But I get it. I get that relationship between the trainer and the fighter and whatever discussions they might have had before. Wardley, there are ways to telegraph to your trainer in the corner that you need him to stop the fight, and the trainer can take the hit and provide the cover for the fighter. Smart teams talk about that in advance. But again, Wardley has this way of pulling things out, and it ended up being his undoing. I'm very reluctant to put blame on anyone for not stopping it. Since this weekend, Davison has done some interviews and admitted, yeah, I should have stopped it earlier. I should have. I regret not doing it. That's hindsight. It's 2020. Let us all hope that Wardley didn't take any permanent punishment. He should not be in any hurry to come back. But what a magnificent performance from Daniel Dubois. He just, he put his game face on. He did not mess around this week. He's a man of few words to begin with. He was a man of even fewer words all week because he was just dialed in. The blinders were on. He was focused forward. And that's exactly what he needed to get the job done. And now he's got a lot of options in front of him. And Wardley will be welcomed back should he want to come back when he comes back. But let's not rush that.
Indeed, before we go to Daniel, comments from regular viewer of the show Compliance. He says, I'm so proud of Dubois. I recall all the negative talk he endured after the Joyce fight, in which Dubois was stopped in 10 after, basic eye damage. And the irony is that Dubois got back into this fight against Wardley with the jab, and it was the jab of Joy Joyce that did a lot of the damage to Dubois' eye when when Dubois got beat by Joyce. So the irony of that, he says that Dubois showed heart in that one. Indeed,
Well, there
um,
is no doubt Daniel Dubois is never going to be called a quitter ever again. Not after that fight.
and you talk options, Daniel. Gail, I go to you on this one, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Dubois certainly has options. Um, in terms of Joyce, you mentioned that he should take an extended break. He shouldn't fight the rest of this year. I would suggest that he would take a full year off because it's not just the outside damage to his face because he basically got his face broke, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's the internal damage as well because the body shots, the fact that he in the last 3, 4 rounds he was getting wobbled with every hard shot that Dubois hits him with. So he needs extended a lengthy time off. In terms of Dubois, when it comes to his future, I know people were already talking a third fight with Usyk. Don't want to but I know he's young. Know if I want to see a rematch in that. Here's my question. Here's the question I pose to you, Daniel. While we talk about this was a tough fight physically on Wardley, Dubois took his lumps as well. He received some punishment, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are Moses Otuma, if you're Frank Warren, who handles Moses Otuma, would you try to make a fight with Dubois now and try to get him back in the ring as soon as possible in hopes that Dubois, that there was some damage done to Dubois and his recovery time may be slow as a result?
If I'm Frank Warren, yes. Because remember, Moses is the number one ranked contender for the WBO belt, that very belt that Dubois won. So they have a case as far as trying to make this fight. And obviously now with Dubois' reputation being more better, like healed in a sense, you could make this fight and it'll instantly sell because it's a UK fight. It's a domestic fight is still at the stage. But if I'm Dubois, I would probably want to take my time too, because honestly, like I said, the fight to me should have been stopped in the 6th round. Because at that point, Fabio, you can tell Fabio Wardley was getting rocked, and was getting rocked pretty badly. Now, it wasn't like I said, it wasn't a thorough ass whooping. This has everything that you need to do to have, especially at heavyweight, a fight of the year candidate. Both guys brung it. Both guys stood their ground. Dubois shook off some demons. And luckily for Fabio's case, he can actually relax a little bit. That was the one thing, unfortunately, that happens when you try to rush a little bit, try to get somebody to be the heir apparent of Usyk. You rush certain things, and then you may not be fully ready. He was ready for Joseph Parker. Obviously, no, he wasn't ready for somebody like Daniel Dubois. Now, for Dubois, I would probably say, yeah, take your time a little bit. See if the WBO can give you at least one voluntary defense, but not against Usyk, because we know how that's going to end. Each fight was, and this time Usyk might finish it out even faster. So take it like I said, regular defense. There are a couple of heavyweights out there that you can do a defense on it. And now that you've silenced the doubters when it comes to your metal, when it comes to your heart, as far as getting up out of the canvas, you can definitely sell, because you can definitely sell a fight against somebody at that for a voluntary defense before your hand gets forced to Moses, because his hand's going to get forced either way.
You know, I do not need to see him against Usyk, and I don't think most people need to see him against Usyk. I don't think you need to see him against Moses Itama either. I don't think Frank Warren's going to pit two of his big money makers in his growing and impressive heavyweight stable against each other. That's not necessary, at least at this point. He wants them both to keep on a trajectory and making some money. Maybe a year or two down the road, I'll tell you who Daniel Dubois should fight, and I'm going to make all the American fans happy. Deontay Wilder. Yeah, hear me out. About the same size, big punchers. You're going to need somebody against Dubois who could sell a fight, who's a talker. We all know Deontay has lots to say. He's an engaging personality. There's a natural rivalry. You know, they're both the same sort of super heavyweight height. Admittedly, Dubois is a lot bigger, but he outweighed Wardley as well by 25 pounds. What's another 10 pounds? Yeah, that's about the difference. I think that's a very makeable fight, depending on what condition Dubois is in. And right now, Wilder's without a dance partner. You know, the thought that he was going to fight Joshua has been tabled because of the inevitable delays due to Joshua's accident, teeing up Tyson Fury. You know, the rest of the year, Joshua's unavailable. Wilder does himself no favors sitting around. He's known to the British fans after the fight with Chisora. I think it's very doable. Yeah, Lobster, you're right with me. I think that's the smart fight to make. Yeah, I understand you've got Richard Torres, who's going to be on the Usyk Verhoeven undercard against Frank Sanchez. Let's see how he looks. Jared Anderson, man, the jury is out on him. Yeah, he has been keeping busy as a very high-level sparring partner, but that is not getting back in the ring under the lights, all the graphics and all the noise and all the fans. A big difference. Jared Anderson needs to prove himself probably in several fights before he goes in near any of these guys. Hrgovic will be in action this weekend. You know, we'll be able to see what he looks like. The guy once again left holding the bag is Agit Kaviel.
He's already stopped Hrgovic, though.
He has,
Yeah.
right? That's what I'm saying. He is left without options. The good thing for Kaviel, he's a huge ticket seller in Germany. They could put him up against your grandmother and he would sell out the place. So maybe you get one of these sort of past prospect type heavyweights that are kicking around. You know, there's quite a few guys that are sort of in that 18-0, 20-0 category. You've got several young Americans that fit that category. As long as he keeps busy, he can fight at home, sell, and do just fine while he's waiting for the rest of these guys to sort of sort out the pecking order.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good way to do it, because he doesn't, like I said, Daniel Dubois doesn't need like a really top end, just something that's credible for voluntary defense.
On the undercard, David Morrell was expected to, I'll just say, win against Zach Chelli, right? And he was doing that heading into the last round, Daniel. But then I am still trying to figure out what happened with that, because suddenly Chelli, boom, caught him, pounced, fight over. ever since he lost to David Benavidez, Morrell hasn't been the same, particularly at 175. And
Yep.
though he was winning, I didn't think he looked great in this fight. He didn't look great in his last fight. What we've
Mhm.
seen from Morrell lately, is this the effect from the punishment that he received from Benavidez, or was moving up to 175 pounds a mistake?
To me, it's a little bit more the latter because it's looking very, very clear now that the power that David Morrell did show at 168 is not being carried to 175. Now, he was, for the most part of the fight, outboxing Chelli, outpointing him, out jabbing him. But Chelli, at least my calculations, at least when I saw, at least 3 or 4 times caught him with a really good shot, and you can tell that rocked Morrell. So it's not only his power, Morrell's power not translating to 175, he may be weakening his punch resistance. And that, unfortunately, is a recipe for disaster. And it cost him very, very much in this fight because 175 is still a weight class that has a lot of interesting pieces that you want to move back and forth, including still a potential rematch with David Benavidez. And unfortunately, like, this is a case where now you really have to sit down, if you're Morrell's team, look at the drawing board, more than likely realize moving up in a weight class may not be worth it at this stage. Yeah, you lost the allure of a potential fight with somebody like Canelo, or even bringing Bud out of retirement. But at the same time, it's pretty evident that you are not built for 175. And that's not knock on David Morrell. He has great exceptional skill. He has really good footwork. He's a good disciplined fighter. But there are limits to what people can do when it comes to moving up in weight. That was our worry with David Benavidez when he moved up to cruiserweight, considering his journey. In Morrell's case, it's gonna look more like the move to back down to 168 is gonna be more likely have to be done sooner rather than later.
I go to you, Gail, but before I do, comments from Lobster 11. He said Morrell
Yeah, he did.
struggled before Benavidez, though. He says that he struggled against in the previous fight against Kolosnik. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I skipped the comment. He says he struggled against Kolosnik. He also says that Morrell seemed to be so talented. It looked easy earlier, but it's his intensity, focus is lacking, in his humble opinion. Ronnie Shields got on him about that in the Benavidez fight. And I hear you, but even in defeat to Benavidez, Gail, Morrell buckled him visibly, right? That power, to Daniel's point, that he showed at 68 is nowhere to be found at 75. What is going on?
I am not convinced it's the weight division. David Morrell would not be the first Cuban school fighter who immigrated to the United States, got a taste of the good life in America, and wasn't quite as diligent in the gym as he used to be. There is a lot of chatter about his out of the gym behavior. You know, he likes to party. He likes to have a few with his friends. I think we've got perhaps a discipline issue. Now, I will say I'll give him a slight pass on the Kolodzic fight. That was on the Crawford versus Madrimov undercard in Los Angeles on a day that was hot as hell in August, and the Morrell Kolodzic fight was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Outside, there was a tarp canvas cover over the ring, but it was every bit of 100 degrees out there during the fight. It was ridiculous. And those guys visibly wilted in the heat. Neither of them were at their best. So it was understandable that their stamina gave out, and that fight ended up looking like it was going on underwater. It was in such slow motion. But I'll tell you, I was there. It was hot. I grew up in Southern California. I can take the heat. They were performing on a stage, in the middle of a bowl, on top of concrete. Yeah, they got some shade. That was about it. So you get a bit of a pass. But somebody who's got a lot of stamina, who does train in those conditions, is much better equipped to take it. You think of the guys at the Diaz Brothers gym out in Indio in the high desert of California, especially the Uzbeki fighters he's all got out there. They train like they're animals. It's insane. That really gives them superb conditioning. Morrell's not doing that. He's just not doing it. And he got caught. He started to gas out. He wasn't working especially hard. At Chelli, this was his shot. He took that fight on a week's notice. He's a full-time school teacher in Fulham. He's trained by his father, who's originally from Tunisia. The family immigrated first to Italy, then to the United Kingdom. What a great story. Show and tell on Monday must have been epic. Epic. Because he took the week off school. He had to go back on Monday. You've got to love that. He was not going to let this golden opportunity get by him. And I'm sure, he's fairly experienced when he has had to fight at the higher level. He's fallen short before. Not this time. He had stayed in shape. His father kept saying, keep at it, keep at it. We're going to get our chance. We're going to get our chance. Man, Dad turned out to be right. They celebrated in the ring after the fight, and they had every right to do it. Chelli's going to get some opportunities now that he would never have dreamed of with a performance like this. And he's got such a good backstory. You've just got to love it. But that's the difference between being ready, training, seizing the opportunity when you've got it, letting it all go. And when he saw that Morrell perhaps was starting to lose some steam, he doubled down. And that's what won him the fight in the end. In the later rounds, he stopped him.
We will see if Morrell can pick himself back up. And following what's a devastating loss in terms of Chelli, kudos for him on the win, the biggest win of his career. You said that he's a full-time teacher, right?
Yeah, he's a full-time school teacher. I gather he is either an elementary or high school teacher. Now, that part I don't know. But, yeah, that's
okay.
a full-time job. He trains on the
okay.
side. I think he won't have to do that now. But you know what? Guys like that, they don't quit their jobs. They maybe take some leave and, hedge their bets. But I would imagine he will be able to put in a long, decent camp. Again, let's repeat this. He took the fight on a week's notice, a week. And it was at a catch weight. The fight was at 178 pounds. Now, that may be another factor. You think, well, 3 pounds difference over light heavyweight, what's the big deal? Sometimes that can be a big deal.
Okay, he's a full-time teacher.
Yeah, he's a full.
He called out Benavidez after the fight. Okay, sir, you're gonna have to become a full-time fighter if you're gonna have any chance in a potential fight with the monster, with the other monster, Benavidez.
In fairness, his father called out Benavidez. In fact, his father, who was hilarious, by the way,
he said it too. He said it too during the not the end of ring post conference, but the extra post conference afterwards.
He mentioned the post fight backstage, because in the ring, what he said after his father said, "Yeah, we want all the big fights. We want Benavidez." And then his comment was, "We won't be greedy. A few million is plenty." I thought that was great. And then his son said, did David Benavidez do that to Morrell? No, I did. You know what? He had every right to say that because that's the truth.
Lobster chimed in the chat that Chelli threw that shifting 1-2 combo, pushing Morrell into the ropes, and when he got tired, it was a little sloppy, but you could hear the thudding impact. Indeed, so again, kudos to him, and let him relish this until whatever comes forward.
He never has to buy a drink in Fulham again in his life, whether he wins another fight or retires. It will not matter. And listen, one more decent fight with a good payday, you know, a high six-figure payday, you know what? That sets him up in every average person's life. That buys you a house, right?
100%.
Keep teaching, and yeah, he's got bragging rights forever.
100%. Let's move on to, well, before we do that, last week at the end, we talked about we was going to preview a fight between Angela Leo and Raees Salim. Turns out that fight was canceled because, and I'm going back to you, Gail, because one of your biggest pet peeves is a fighter not tending to business on the scale. And the fight was canceled between Leo and Aleem because Raees Salim came in 2.8, almost 3 pounds over the 126 featherweight limit. Second attempt, he only got down to 128 pounds. Fight was called off. I'll leave it open to you, Gail, because one of the things that you despise is fighters not tending to business when it comes to themselves making weight.
Yep, but you got one job before the fight, to get on the scale. There were a lot of excuses made. Apparently there were issues at the hotel where Aleem was staying, claimed that they were out of hot water, some crazy thing like that, and that he was counting on, you know, doing a heat soak for his weight cut. Well, that's ridiculous. Okay, that's not optimal. I get it. You know what? That could not have been the only damn hotel in Atlanta. Move. Go take care of your business. If that's what it was, if that's what you were really counting on to come close to making weight, that's bad planning on your part, but you know what? Hustle it up. Get your business taken care of. That's inexcusable. And what are you leaving it so late for anyway? And if you know you're going to have trouble, you know, you start talking to the other team and saying, listen, you know, Houston, Atlanta, we got a problem. Okay. And you start talking about it way in advance, because your opponent, Leo, he did the hard work. You know, he looked pretty skeletal on the scale. I mean, he was fit, but he's clearly having to really work hard to get to 126. Well, he managed to do it. You didn't bother. So you suddenly put him in a massive disadvantage. You know, and a lot of fighters like Leo, who hasn't had a fight in a year, who's in the main event in what was really the only major American fight card on Saturday, a lot of guys just decide they got to go through with it and got to take the risk. It's a bad idea. It's a really bad idea. Look what happened to Oscar Duarte a few weeks ago. His opponent came in way over. He took some money. He took more than half his purse to go through with the fight, and he damn near lost that fight. So Leo and his team had to make the hard call and say, nope, we are not going forward with the fight. You missed weight by too much. No amount of money puts us on an even playing field. I will live to fight another day. Raees Salim will never get a fight at this level ever again. He's 35 years old. He absolutely blew up his career, his future. You know, if he had made weight and he had won this fight, he had so many opportunities open to him. He slammed the door on himself. I have no sympathy for him whatsoever. fortunately, under the IBF's rules, if your opponent misses weight, you get paid. You get paid. Now, Leo could have gone forward with the fight without the belt in play. That was an option. He decided not to do that either, and I think that was a wise move as well. So he got paid. The only issue was apparently there was a lot of finger pointing over, well, who's the one that pays him? Is it his promoter? Is it the promotional entity, the managerial team for Aleem? That, in my opinion, that's who should have paid it. But Leo did say later, did confirm he got paid. He hasn't said by who, but at least that way he pays his team, he pays all his sparring partners, he pays the bills at the gym or whatever else he's incurred, he pays his nutritionist, and that's as it should be.
Let's move on to some news. And over the past 24 hours, we've gotten word that one Vasyl Lomachenko announced that he's making a return to the ring. Now, his manager, Klimas, said they hope to have a fight with Loma this fall. No tune-ups, quote unquote, from him. I go to you, Daniel. You can follow up, Gail, your reaction to the return of Loma. If he is still half the fighter that he was before he left, listen, outside of Shakur, no one should scare Loma at 135. I think he can still do damage in that division. I think he can still win a world title at the division. Even if he goes down to 30, he's the dude. Your reaction to the return of Lomachenko? What is he, 36, 37 years old now?
I think he's 37, but first, pretty smart move, taking a couple years off, and effectively, I would say, probably waiting Shakur out until he's ready to go up to another weight class that you're not willing to go up to. That's one. But other than that,
and one more thing, Daniel, excuse me before you go on, it's not that he's just returning. As of yesterday, he's a free agent.
That, like I said, that I'm not really surprised by, because for you do a couple of years off, Gail's then, I guess, right. Yeah, she is 38. But the main thing when it comes into him being a free agent is it does free him up in the space, because unfortunately Bob doesn't have the stranglehold at lightweight that he once had. But at the same time, it gives him a little bit of freedom to move around, engage to see what is the interest out there. Does he get the money for the blood money mark in Turkey? Does he have to wait in another zone? Does he have to sign with Oscar? Does he go back to Bob as a union of convenience? We just have to see, because even at this stage, Lomachenko was pretty tested as far as compared to what he was facing at 126 and 130 at lightweight. But he also had still a lot of better movement. His coordination worked really well, and his footwork was still top notch. Outside of Shakur, that's the only person that you could probably put right now and say, and you could actually say with a straight face, he could beat Lomachenko. That's the one area that I would say that he mainly has to worry about. But luckily, it looks like Shakur is circling other potential opponents. So it gives Lomachenko time to get reacclimated, see what's out there, see what money is out there, and ultimately see what fights you can make. Because, yeah, he's coming back, but he is getting close to 30. And he is one of those people that we got to remember, deep amateur career. became professional very, very late as far as athletics go. So he doesn't exactly have a lot of time left on the table to be at a top level.
Excuse me, Gail. Who do you see Loma going for now that he's a free agent? If it's money, Tank. Suffice. Given if Tank is head is halfway right, that's the fight he can make the most money in. But as I put in the chat, if the relationship is still, he's still copacetic with Top Rank, I could see Loma fighting Muratalla late this year, early next year.
Muratalla, everybody. Muratalla. That's not a bad fight. Muratalla would certainly take it. I don't know what Loma's relationship is with Top Rank and with Bob Arum and Klimas.
That will not happen, Lobster. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, that ain't happening. The Muratalla fight would be the easy one, right? For a return fight, it's makeable. I think the relationships within Top Rank are all just perfectly fine. It's going to be interesting to see how Top Rank fares. Their very first card's coming back this weekend, their first fully promoted card under their new DAZN/TNT contract. They're going to need a few months to get ramped back up. So we'll see what happens there. I imagine Muratalla is going to be very anxious to get going. Lomachenko's statements indicate that he isn't planned to fight right away. It's going to be later this fall. Well, fall could be November or December for all we know. So I think boxing is, at this point, better with Lomachenko back in it, depending on what his plans are. And he can come back and have 2 or 3 fights, and that may be all he's really looking to do, to go out on a little more of a high note. And it might be that whatever issues he was having, I believe it was back trouble. Do I remember that right? Maybe he's just feeling so much better. It's so good that he's thinking, what am I sitting around for? And he is not competing in highly talent-loaded divisions, right? So there are clear lanes for him. A Tank fight. Ugh. So we have no idea what's going on with Gervonta Davis. We've heard nothing from him. He's been very much out of the public eye, which was very smart of him. We don't know where he's at. We don't know where his legal issues are at. We don't know where his head is at. He's not going to take a Lomachenko fight, his first fight back. It's really hard to say. And from what I am hearing from people who have spotted him in public, where he's been very low-key, mostly by himself, that he looks like he could be a light heavyweight. He's big. So he's got some work to do. A good, interesting announcement, and it was a smart thing to do it this week and early this week because it's fairly slow news-wise. The general American sports fans' attention is turned toward playoffs right now. So that was a smart thing to do, and now he can, now that it's official, now that he has put speculation to rest about his future, he get in the gym, get to work, see how things are shaking out. And you're right, he is done with his contract with Top Rank, so he's got options.
We'll keep you updated here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report of any word on when exactly Lomachenko was returning to the ring and against who. For those who are joining us late, once again, Vasyl Lomachenko has announced he's coming out of retirement and that he is a free agent. He's a free agent, so he's no longer with Top Tank. What his next move is, we just do not know as of this live recording. Let's move on to preview some fights this weekend because I said This is going to be a pretty short show. The goal is to try to get it in around the 60-minute mark. Where do I want to go? Where do I want to go? Where do I want to go? Let's go to the UK, right? Interesting fight, Gail. On the zone is going to happen on the 16th. Filip Hrgovic, right? A mainstay in the division for a number of years now, fighting Dave Allen, who is a fan's favorite over in England. And I think he's one of your favorite fighters as well. Kind of a regular old plug. He's always in good fights. Not the most talented guy, but and is not always in the best of shape. But he one of these guys you can't help but like, because he gives effort every time he steps in the ring, no matter what his condition is. Biggest fight of his career, coming off of his last fight where he got the knockout. I think that Matchroom is rewarding him in a sense with this kind of fight against Hrgovic. Your thoughts?
Dave Allen has got to be the most popular fighter in the world with 8 losses. Maybe next to Derek Chisora, who's got more. And he's a little bit in that vein. An ordinary bloke, man of the people. He's from Yorkshire. This fight's going to be in Doncaster, so this is a home fight for him. In fact, he has said it's his first fight back in his home turf in 10 years. So there's enormous enthusiasm in that area for him. And, he's been very, he's just a beloved figure. The kind of guy that everyone feels like they know him. He scored this opportunity by taking out Johnny Fisher, which was really a big surprise that he
that's right.
beat Fisher. He was quite an underdog. He then went on, however, to fight Arslanbek Makhmudov, who you all saw lose to Tyson Fury, and he did lose to Makhmudov. However, he made it all 12 rounds. He did not get knocked down. It was seen as a very solid, credible performance. That's before we all realized Makhmudov was maybe not the big, scary knockout puncher we all thought he was. He had the look, but maybe not really the chops behind that. In any event, he's since come back, took a tune-up fight early this year, got himself a nice first-round knockout, 57 seconds in. The other corner already, was throwing in the towel. That's exactly what he needed to have happen. So here he is against Hrgovic. Now, we mentioned Vasyl before and how he kind of is the guy playing musical chairs left without anywhere to sit all of a sudden at heavyweight. Hrgovic's kind of in the same position. This is such a smart fight for him to take. There's a minor IBF strap involved, just to make things interesting, right? But it's better for him to take a fight like this that's going to sell well on a weekend that isn't particularly competitive with a lot of other stuff going on in the boxing world, to stay busy, to stay sharp, to stay in front of the public, because he isn't as well known a figure or a personality as a lot of these other guys in the heavyweight division. So activity is his friend. He's coming off a really, really sharp performance against David Adelier. They went the distance, but he absolutely smoked him. It was a shutout on the cards in over 10 rounds. So he looked good. Those kind of rounds are money in the bank for him. Now he's going to face Allen, who's a huge underdog. I mean, huge. Doesn't matter. No one cares. This is a party. Everyone's going to be there to have a good time, cheer on their guy. I hope all the bars are well stocked in the area because they're going to sell everything they've got
And
And
in the arena, because there's gonna be plenty of drinking going on.
oh, yeah, just a bit, just a bit. You know what? And against Dave Payday, I have recently heard an interview with him, and he said, he feels no real pressure. You know, he's fighting at home. He's going to enjoy himself. He said he's ready. Good for him. It's a decent payday for him. He probably knows he's pretty close to the end of the line. I'm going to check his age. I don't think he's as old as we might think he is. Yeah, he's only 34 years old. And it's 25, 8, and 2. Out of his 8 losses, 4 of them have been knockout losses. But he's faced a lot of talents. He got taken out by Fraser Clark, or when Fraser Clark was thought to be the next great British heavyweight way back. He got himself that fight against Johnny Fisher in Riyadh. That was a nice payday for him. Won the rematch with Fisher. The first fight was a split decision loss, but it was close. So he got to do it again. You know what? In the last couple of years, probably after fancying himself mostly a journeyman, his first major loss was to Dillian White way back in the day. He fought Luis Ortiz. He fought Tony Yoka. He fought Lucas Brown, David Price. You know what? He has not fought the Tyson Fury's Anthony Joshua level, Deontay Wilder. He's fought everyone else. And American fans might not know him very well. But, he's made a career out of what talent he's got. Good for him. I don't think he's even ranked in the top 50 anymore. No one cares. No one cares. It'll be a sellout. It'll be a good time. And hey, I love myself a afternoon card from the UK.
Going to put a pause on the fight previews this week. I'm going to go back to the news segment because I forgot one particular story. Now go to you on this one, Daniel. Ellie Scottney, who was, I believe, undisputed champion at 122 on the women's side, has decided to forego her belts, move up to 126. Personally, I think it's the right move at the right time. She was having issues getting down to that weight. At 28, she's in her prime. And when you look at the featherweight landscape, I know Serrano's there, but she's in her mid-30s now. And I don't think she's the fighter that she was. She's losing some steam, if you will. And Tiara Brown, who has the WBC belt, also at 126. Bit of an unknown. I think there's an opportunity for Brown is a WBC belt. My apologies. I think the opportunity there for Scottney, not just to move up, but immediately get a title shot against either Serrano or Brown. Your reaction to Scottney moving up a division from 22 to 26?
Given the landscape that we're seeing, I'm not surprised. 126 seems to be more of a easier division to conquer, and while Serrano is, she's older, it's still a big name. It's still Amanda Serrano, so it could be more enticing in that manner. I'm not surprised by it. Once you clean out the division the way she cleaned out the division, your natural instinct is to probably go up. And with the way women's boxing is shaping up, it might lead to a pretty decent payday.
Indeed. I think she is the big name, or one of the biggest names over in the UK. I could see her team luring Tiara Brown over, have Brown defend the title over there. They have to throw some money her way. But that's the option I will be looking at if I was Scottney. Right move, right time, strike while the iron is hot. let's move back into previewing some fights. Let's go from the UK over to Norfolk and undercard bout here, Daniel. Last time we saw Brian Norman Jr. November last year, lost the WBO belt at 147 against Devin Haney. Got knocked down early in that fight. A lot of people were putting their money on Norman to get the win over Haney, who still had questions coming off of his performance again in that no contest against Garcia. Disappointed in his effort. Norman was disappointed in his effort. Uh, he went from the high of that sensational knockout win over Jin Sasaki to the low against Haney. What do you expect of Norman in this upcoming fight against Josh Wagner?
This is actually a good bounce back fight to me. Like, because you mentioned it, it was really high in against Sasaki and then really low when it comes to running against Haney. So getting to this fight with somebody like Wagner is a good rebuilding fight for somebody that you can still say is mainly untested in the division. And with the division opening up the way it is, has room to grow and room to potentially put himself back into the title picture. So, but he has to impress. There's been many, many cases of fighters getting this chance, getting for a potential comeback fight, a potential way to rewrite the narrative, and everything goes awry. And we talked about it last week, a couple weeks ago, Jaime Munguia, that he was supposed to have a big comeback fight, wound up getting knocked out. And you don't, if you're Norman, you don't want to put in either that type of performance or a performance where it looks disappointing, that you're just there for the sake of being there. This should not be a hard fight for him to win. This, like I said, it's a good bounce back fight, but at the same time, he has to be impressive. He has to show that he has what it takes to be still considered the top in the welterweight division, not just somebody that's just very good. And that's unfortunately the place where he is right now. Somebody that is very good.
This fight is on the undercard of a main event. Keyshawn Davis fighting a rematch against Albright. Now, these two, Davis and Albright, fought 2.5 years ago. I think it was October 2023, Gail. Davis got the win, but Albright gave him all that he could handle, particularly in the second half of the fight. Albright insisted that he won. Been calling for a rematch for a number of years. He finally gets it. Davis is still feeling the sting of what went down, him being a bully after Albright defeated Keyshawn's brother, Kelvin. Keyshawn has the potential, Gail, if he's on his game, to be a borderline elite fighter from that 135, 140 pound range. I hope he's fully learned his lesson from how he's acted outside of the ring. Not in terms of his behavior in the aftermath of Albright beating his brother, but also in terms of discipline and comes his way, because like Aleem, Davis has had some weight issues in the past, right? Keyshawn has said he's made the transformation. If he truly has, I think he wins the rematch in an easier fashion this time around. Your thoughts?
Well, we're going to find out. Keyshawn was very visible during fight week in Las Vegas for the Benavidez Zurdo card. Was getting swarmed by media, making the rounds. Not a bad thing for him to do. You know, there is an intriguing narrative behind this fight. You know, the Keyshawn beat Nahir in 2023. It was not razor close, but it was a close fight on the cards. It was a 96-94 scorecard, and one judge had the fight even with Davis, between Davis and Albright. And then Davis got popped testing positive for marijuana. Okay, not a PED, but it's illegal in Texas, and in any state where it is illegal, it might as well be steroids. So it was changed to a no decision. So that is not on the record of either guy. Albright had been having trouble getting fights. So he had been fighting in what is now being called Team Boxing League. You might know it as Team Combat League. And he was doing very well there. He was staying busy. It was paying him to train. Albright, a little like Chelli, he has a full-time job. He's a nurse. He is a nurse. I think he's a phlebotomist specifically. So he was doing his total Team Boxing League stuff, working, and got called in as an opponent to Kelvin Davis, right? Who was undefeated last June when he faced him, and he beat him. And there was a minor WBC silver strap involved. And then most of you know the rest of the story, which is that on that same card, that's the card where Keyshawn Davis famously blew through the scale and then some. Fight was canceled. So Keyshawn is there. His brother Keon is there, who was on the card as well. And then Kelvin is on the card fighting Albright. Albright beats him. The Davis brothers take offense to this and end up storming his dressing room with a whole bunch of their posse. A fight ensues. The fight ends up spilling out into the corridor where, there are cameras visible and media. Hello. So it all gets aired out in public. Ugly scene.
And we have to also acknowledge, and I should have as well, that Albright is coming off of a draw against Martin. He had Martin out on his feet.
Ahead of me. Hold on. I was getting there. So Albright then gets an opportunity to face Frank Martin. Frank Martin was coming off his loss to Tank Davis, so he needed some kind of a decent fight. Well, here's Albright, who's, got a little bit of a backstory to him. Interesting fight. This was on the undercard of the Mario Barrios Ryan Garcia fight. He fights Frank Martin to a draw. I'm going to tell you right now, Albright won the fight. The whole arena knew he won the fight. His team knew he won the fight. Frank Martin knew he won the fight. Unfortunately, none of the three judges thought he won or wanted him to win. Every single card was a draw. It wasn't a split draw. It wasn't a majority draw. It was a straight up draw. So I think while it's possible Albright may lose, he is a live dog. And Keyshawn better be ready for him because he's ready to go. He's got something to prove. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Fighters that come in like that can be very dangerous. In the meantime, he has been training, I believe, full time for this fight. I don't think he's been working. However, he did take a little time off to do something. He auditioned for America's Got Talent. So this is one interesting guy. I am fascinated by his story. If you recall watching the fight on the Barrios Garcia undercard, he graced us with a song after the fight, and he's good. He is very good, and win or lose on Saturday when America's Got Talent returns here near the end of the month for the summer, keep your eye out for Nahir Albright because I understand he made the show.
Indeed. Comments here from Compliance in terms of the Albright rematch, the Davis Albright rematch, he says Albright did well versus Frank Martin, but I look for Keyshawn to build off of the Ortiz victory and win, and what Compliance is referring to. In his last effort, his debut at 140, Keyshawn Davis looked very good in a win over Jermaine Ortiz in a unanimous decision win. I believe that was on the undercard of Teofimo and Shakur. Correct me if I'm wrong. Gail and Daniel.
I believe that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Absolutely. And again, rematch between Keyshawn Davis and Nahir Albright. That's going to be on the 16th in Norfolk, Virginia, at the Scope. If you remember, old school boxing fans would
Yeah.
know that the Scope used to be the fighting home of one Purnell, the late great Purnell, Sweet Pea Whitaker.
Mm-hmm.
Keyshawn Davis, like Sweet Pea, born and raised in Norfolk, so that should be a pretty intriguing contest coming up this weekend on the Zone. And I think we
And
may end.
I
Go
am
ahead.
going to mention it. I'm going to mention it. No, it's not a boxing card. But MVP's first mixed martial arts card is also this Saturday with some intriguing names even us MMA casuals know. The return of Ronda Rousey against Gina Carano, Francis Ngannou's on the card, Nate Diaz is on the card. I understand hearing an interview with Jake Paul's business partner, Nikisa Badarian, that they expect to do a good gate and they have plans for several more MMA cards this year. It's been a very
And speaking of
interesting.
one Jake Paul, let's just throw it out here. An interview earlier this week.
Yep.
He said that the results of that fight with Joshua, he could not fight again.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thinking
Joshua
it's,
broke
yeah,
his face, and yeah,
his boxing days
you
might be over. Don't count on Jake Paul fading into the woodwork anytime
look,
soon.
man, look. Did you see his? Did you see that photo with him and Logan? He ain't
Yeah,
fighting no more.
he didn't fight no more. You know what? He
He,
doesn't need to. And I am very intrigued by this new level of promotional competition in the mixed martial arts space. I I do not profess to be the kind of observer of mixed martial arts than I am of boxing, but I do, and I think much of the universe can tell that Dana White's enthusiasm for MMA and under his UFC banner has faded. He is much more interested in his new boxing venture. And if you matched up his post-fight press conference between Saturday night after the UFC card, which got very mixed reviews, and his post-fight presser after Zuffa's card last Sunday, which was an excellent card, by the way, very fun to watch, a great introduction to people who are new to boxing. That's the kind of card it was, and that's the kind of card they need to put on. His enthusiasm was off the charts. He was feeling himself. And he also decided to take shots at Eddie Hearn and Oscar, and that he was his usual self, but he was very, very subdued Saturday. I find this interesting that MVP is muscling their way in here, and I think it would be smart for us all to keep an eye on what's going on there.
strangely enough, Paul and Dana are not the best of friends, and I think there's ulterior motive to your point in what Paul is doing in MMA.
I think it's not ulterior. I think it's right out there, frankly. I don't know how brazenly Paul is speaking about it. Badarian's pretty blunt about it.
And that's where I will give Paul credit. None as a fighter, so no sympathy for me that he's probably done fighting. But on the promotional side, I'll give him his due on that, particularly when it comes to women's boxing. And as much as I'm not a fan of him, admittedly, one person who I like even less is one Dana White. And if Paul indirectly has a way of undermining Mr. White, Dana White, and his trying to bully and browbeat this sport, I'm here. I'm all for it. Now I think we're going to end things on that note.
Well, and love him or hate him, and a lot of people do fall on the hate side of the ledger. Jake Paul's a whip smart businessman. He has made a fortune for himself. He has made a lot of money for a lot of the people affiliated with him and around him. And one of the few areas of growth, of revenue growth in sports, are women's sports. Women's professional sports are seeing year over year growth far above where the men are. Now, men's professional sports, leagues, TV deals, all of that have several decades of head start on women. There's no doubt about that. But if you're looking to get on the ground floor when the prices are reasonable and put your foot on the gas for exponential growth, it's where the women are. And it's been very smart for Jake, Nikisa, and MVP to say, we're going to take this arena of boxing. They do, by the way, put a few token men on their cards. I'm just saying. It's not always all women, but the women's are the star of the shows. That's who they promote. And they're the ones that are going to see the higher rate of growth. They're going to see that graph a lot steeper than people who are getting in on men's sports right now. So it's going to be very interesting to watch for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Is not permanent friends, permanent enemies in a lot of cases. Not all, but in a lot of cases, is not permanent friends or permanent enemies. Is permanent interest, and I'll double down again. If the result of what Paul is doing is to undermine what White is doing. I mean, hell, Paul even had the gumption to speak out against White's stance in the Muhammad Ali act. So I'll give him even credit on that. And him and the others round together in their own little way for the sake of sport, for the overall sake of the sport. I am here for it. I want to end things. Let's end things on that note before we go even further over time. I want to thank Compliance. Want to thank Lobster 11 for their comments. If you haven't done so, for those who are checking us out on YouTube, please make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. To do so, you get notifications on all future episodes and follow up YouTube shorts from Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Once again, as I said at the beginning of the show, Pound for Pound Boxing Report is now an affiliate, sponsored, if you will, by both the Nazar fragrances and the Vasyl fragrances. If you're interested in anything smell good, cologne, smell good for yourself or for the significant other in your life, use the code Michael WP4P for 15% off on any and all fragrances on at Nazar fragrances, and for any and all fragrances and body care products over at Navrat fragrances. Going to go around the panel here, starting the show with ladies first. We end the show with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com and Gail Falkenthal on boxing. For those who want to talk the sweet signs, let the folks know where they can find you, and a little bit of plug, if you will, about your own YouTube channel here, talking boxing.
It is. Well, let's start with nyfights.com. nyfights.com is where the writing component goes. My interview series is Gail Falkenthal on Boxing on YouTube. Right now, it's posted an author interview with Jack Hirsch, longtime boxing journalist, and also past president of the Boxing Writers Association of America for multiple terms. He's a soldier in the organization, and decided to finally buckle down and write his first book. Well, it was worth the wait. It is Michael Jinx Spinks, an authorized biography. He had the full cooperation of Michael, of his family, many of his future fellow boxers and former opponents spoke to Jack. It was a really terrific read, fun interview. That is posted, and I warmly recommend you get the book. He wrote it in a very quick reading style. It is all killer, no filler, and it's available everywhere. And I mean Amazon, Walmart, Target, Barnes and Noble. You can't help but stumble over it. So if you're looking for a good read for the summer, I think you can't do better than this.
Absolutely. I'll go to you, Daniel, from For Boxing News and the Inscriber for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling. And I was able to check out Daniel's latest podcast episode, the Inscriber, talking WWE and WrestleMania. Also, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
You see it on the social server, Rock's99 on Twitter. Yeah, that's right, Elon. Fuck you. Twitter, Blue Sky, anybody else that pretty much any social that I can have hands on, I put that name on there. Definitely catch me on there. We're probably going to do something very soon regarding a potential other podcast idea that I have. And do not worry about Jake Paul. We're probably going to be hearing him versus either Don Fry or Dan Severn soon enough.
Nice little teaser right there, Daniel. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and smell good, you know what it is with me on Twitter, because like Daniel, I refuse to call it X. You can check me out there, Brother JR, at Brother JR76 on IG and Blue Sky. Whenever I'm on Blue Sky, you can check me out at both of those spaces, Brother JR SC. On the next episode, we would have a recap of the rematch between Keyshawn Davis and Nahir Albright. Recap of the undercard featuring Brian Norman returning to the ring against Josh Wagner. Also a recap of Dave Allen, Filip Hrgovic. We may talk Maxie Hughes, who's fighting on the undercard of Alice and Hrgovic. And we will do a preview of the quote-unquote fight between Alexander Usyk fighting of Rico Verhoeven for Usyk's WBC belt. On the undercard of that, Hamza Shiraz is fighting Alim Bejik, excuse me if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, my apologies. That is for the vacant WBO belt at 168. Jack Catterall returns to the ring to fight Giasov for a belt at 147. Frank Sanchez is going to fight Richie Torres on that card. Mizuki Haruta, WBO Women's Junior Bantamweight Champion. Both Daniel and Gail will attest, one of the best fighters in all of women's boxing, one of the most entertaining fighters, regardless of gender, weight division, etc. She fights on the same card, defending her belt against a lady by the name of Solomon. So we will preview all of those bouts. That card is taking place in Egypt on the 24th. So we will talk about all of those bouts. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us, who participated in the live chat, their questions, their comments, and etc. For Gail of nyfights.com and Gail Falkenthal on boxing. For Daniel of For Boxing News and the Inspirer, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 486 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.